everyone, welcome to the Actual Laser Safety Awareness Training course. My name is Kai. All Actual Laser machine users are required to participate in the Actual Laser Safety Awareness Training course before into several classes depending on the extent of the laser hazard. With class 1 being the least dangerous, please ensure you check the label and comprehend each product laser classification in address the probable effects of exposure of higher laser.
Actually, I don't think we'll have to fill it again because it's just going down back into the water feature.